Good day everyone, and welcome back to another book review. If you saw my first one, you may recall hearing me say that I don't really like reading horror stories. Well, I read another one, and that's what we're here to talk about today. The book is titled And the Trees Crept In, and the author is Dawn Kurtagich, and I apologize if I pronounced that name incorrectly. The story focuses on two sisters, Scylla and Nori, after they ran away from their parents' home to live with their Aunt Catherine. Their father was abusive, and Aunt Catherine is their mom's sister. And her home is the most classic horror setting of all time. A mansion in the woods. The longer Scylla and Nori live in the house, the more strange things start happening. As the title states, the trees of the forest begin to literally close in on the house. Some weird guy named Gowan shows up, and Aunt Catherine goes crazy and lives in the attic. I don't remember how I came across this book. I know I've had it for a while, but I can't clearly remember where I found it. I think it was a grocery store, weirdly enough, in a bin of, bargain books. You could pick some of them out and get them for cheaper than you otherwise would, that sort of thing. And I think that's where I found this book. Or it just showed up in my room out of nowhere one day. I'd believe that too. But anyway, now that we've got the introduction taken care of, let's get into what I thought about the book. Starting off the list of things I liked, I'll mention the characters. The cast was very small, which I appreciated because it made it easy to keep track of everyone. I never saw a name and had to ask, wait, who was that again? The main character of the story is the older sister Scylla, which is short for Priscilla. As the protagonist, she was the most fleshed out and developed character, and I really liked her. I think she fits super well as the main character. This one is going to sound a little bit strange, but the book wasn't scary. There was never any point where I was frightened or scared by anything in the story. It was definitely eerie and mysterious at times, but I consider those separate things from scary. This is an aspect that, based on other reviews I read, other readers really did not like. And that makes sense. It's labeled as a horror story, so you would expect it to be scary. So that's why it might seem like a strange thing that I think it's great that it wasn't scary. But here's the reason. I don't like being scared. If something isn't scary, that's a positive for me. Now, you may be asking, if you don't like being scared, why do you keep reading horror books? To which I say, shut up. There's another element to the book that divided other readers, and that was the style of the text itself. Like the actual words and letters that were written on the page. I personally fall into the camp of the variations in the text and formatting being really cool. It didn't make it hard for me to read the story at all, and I think it did a pretty good job of emphasizing Scylla's internal thoughts and feelings. I honestly wish more writing would mess around with the style and formatting of the text a little bit. There were also extra details like journal entries and notes. These further helped to develop Scylla's character, and they showed her struggle to stay sane in the middle of all of the weird things happening around her. There are some passages where individual words are bigger than the others around them, and if you read just the big words, it spells out like a secret message of some sort, and I thought that was really neat. Honestly, I liked most of the book, but those were just the things I really wanted to highlight. Now let's see what I didn't enjoy as much. There weren't many things about the book that I didn't like, but there are three main complaints I have. First, there's the romance between Scylla and Gowan. I'm sorry, but it was just kinda I can't really put any actual critiques of it into words. I just wasn't the biggest fan of it. I didn't hate it either, I just kinda didn't like it. The middle of the book dragged a bit. It felt like there was a really long section of mostly nothing happening. Things were too gradual before they suddenly really ramped up towards the end of the book. Basically, the pacing felt really off after the beginning of the story. And my last complaint is about the ending. A lot of people apparently did not like the ending of the book, and I can see why. It's definitely possible to see it as a very cheap and lazy conclusion to the story. Personally, I'm not as harsh on the ending as some other people were. I felt that it explained a lot of aspects of the story and certain words and actions of the characters. Most of my issues with it tie into the just overall pacing problems. The ending and climax just happened way too suddenly for any clues about the reveal to be shown and developed properly. It also felt like one particular thread or idea was being built up a lot, only for it to basically go nowhere in the end. I'm also not a fan of the massive info dump or summary at the end of the book. It almost felt insulting in a way, like the author just assumed the reader wouldn't be able to piece together what happened. You don't need a character to like, look the audience in the eye and say, now here's everything that happened in chronological order and why it happened that way. It was really annoying and mostly unnecessary. But like I said at the start, those were my only major complaints. The romance, the pacing, and the ending. That's about it. Overall, I would rate this book a solid 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed most of it, and the negatives aren't enough to weigh down my overall opinion of it. I would say And the Trees Crept In falls into the psychological horror genre, which I feel is something you don't see in books that often. It seems way more common in movies and video games. A lot of elements and tropes of psychological horror can be really hard to put into writing, especially since movies and video games can rely heavily on visuals and music, which books just don't have, but I think it was mostly pulled off pretty well here, although it could still be the source of some of the book's issues. If you're interested in this book, I'd say you should definitely give it a try. And if you're normally put off by horror stories like I tend to be, I don't think you have to worry too much. This one isn't scary. Thank you for watching my second ever book review. I actually really like doing these, so I'll probably end up doing more of them. I just really like talking about the things I enjoy. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks again for watching, and have a good day.